original stories based on my experiences of growing up in the South and working. Tonight I want to do something different because this weekend is my 50th wedding anniversary. And Steve's been listening to these stories for a long time. And storytelling, storytelling is the oldest form of entertainment. Before there was written words, there were storytellers. And they gathered around the campfire, and the storyteller was important. They kept the history, and they entertained people, and they explained things. And then the Bible stories, the stories of creation, this was a way of explaining them. And sometimes they were quite imaginative in the way they explained them. There's a tribe of Indians who tell that a great bird flew over the land, and when it raised its wings up, the mountains were formed, and when it put its wings down, the valleys were formed. And it seemed logical to the people. This was an explanation. This is how things were explained through storytelling. And what I want to tell you now is it's based on an ancient Greek story called The Island of Emotions. You see, a long, long time ago, when human beings were first around, emotions were separate. They lived their own lives. They had their own gender. And they sometimes stayed on their own island. And the emotions, before they became part of humans, well, they had their own adventures. And on this island of emotions, they loved to play games. And the game that they liked to play most was hide and seek. Can you believe it? Hide and seek. And who was always it? Madness. Madness was always it. Now, with storytelling, you have to use your imagination. You have to picture what these storytellers are telling you. Now, when I say madness, I imagine the Joker from Batman, not the movie version, but the TV version. Now you might imagine Steve Martin, wild and crazy guy, but that's kind of the way madness was. He was wild and crazy, and he loved to find everybody when they were hiding. And the first person to always be found was laziness, because laziness was just too lazy to hide. He'd start down the road and he'd lay down and they'd find him right away. And the last to be found always was shyness. I try to imagine what shyness looked like, but she's veiled. You can't see her. She's so bashful you can't see her face. So I imagine her as a woman wrapped, and I imagine her as a woman. Now, shyness being the last to be found, that made jealousy angry. And I always imagine jealousy and her sister envy. Being dressed in green and having red hair. That's how I imagine. You could probably imagine them as you want to see them. And there's some people didn't hide. Anger would not hide. Anger did not. He'd like to watch, and when someone got upset, he would step in because that's what anger thrived on. And there was one person, one emotion that madness liked to find the most, and that was love. Love was so beautiful. She was her face was so like a Disney princess, maybe. I don't know. How would you imagine what love would look like? But she had fair skin. And love, she liked to hide in the roses. She loved flowers, and she loved the soft petals on a rose. And she loved the fragrance of the roses. But you had to watch out for the thorns. And love would go into the rose bushes and hide. And reason would tell her, be careful, be careful. You might get hurt. But love never listens to reason, does it? And so one day she was going to hide deep down in. She nestled herself down in there. And madness jumps up, and he's looking frantically, and he wants to find love because, madness will be that way when you want to find love. And he was trying to find her, and he couldn't, and he got a stick, a long pole, and he started poking into the rose bush, and he caused a thorn to cut across her eyelids. And she couldn't see. And she couldn't see it, and she cried out, and madness reached out to help her. And the other person who really liked love was Mystery. And Mystery came and grabbed her by the one arm, and madness got her by the other, and they took her out of the roses. Now meanwhile, there were these two brothers. They were handsome guys. And I think of them as the Property Brothers on TV. I mean, you can imagine what they look like, tall, dark, and handsome. Well, one brother, he always dressed in white, and the other brother dressed in black. And their names were Truth and Life. And lie liked to play hit hide and go seek, but truth didn't want to play. He didn't think there was. He thought it was deceitful. He didn't want to hide. But lie loved the game, and lie decided to trick his brother Truth. He challenged him. He said, "Let's swim across this river that was flowing through the valley, and if I get to the other side before you do, I'll be better than you. If you get to the other side, you'll be better than me, because I'm the greatest. I can swim. I can beat you. I know I can." Well, he was lie, so Truth didn't believe him. Truth said there was a 50-50 chance because he was being truthful. So they said, "Let's take off all of our clothes so we can swim through the water fast." So lie and Truth strip off their clothes. They count to 3, and Truth jumps in the water and starts swimming. And lie smiles and looks down, puts on Truth's clothes, and he heads into town dressed as Truth. And on his way in there, he meets a beautiful woman. I don't know, you might think of her as, I don't know, some kind of, she was kind of flashy. Her name was Flattery. And Lie and Flattery got together, and everywhere they went, people loved to welcome them in. They were the hit of the town. Meanwhile, Truth comes back, and his clothes are gone. And he doesn't want to put on Lie's black clothes. No, I don't want to dress like Lie. I'm always honest. I'm the truth. So he goes into town naked, and people don't want the naked Truth. And there's more. Yeah. So this very day, and this is the way that the ancient Greeks explained this. This very day, love is still blind, and it's followed by madness and shrouded in mystery. And people would still love to hear a lie wrapped in the truth. But something happened to Truth. He went out on his own, and he got discouraged because he was naked, and people didn't want to listen to him. They didn't want to hear him. And he's sitting on the side of the road crying, and this flashy woman comes up, and she says, What can I do for you? What's wrong with you? I know you're Truth. He says, yes, nobody wants to hear me. Nobody wants to see the naked truth. She says, well, I'm Story. And if you wrap yourself in some of my clothes, if you wrap the truth in a story, well, people will be more accepting. And that's what it came to be. And they had a son. And he was a great teacher. His name was Parable. And that's the story of the Island of Emotions.